What's the worst coworker you've ever worked with? My coworker likes to initiate conversations, then does long pauses where you go to say something back. Then he cuts you off and keeps talking. He has entire conversations almost entirely by himself. He also likes to make changes to my paperwork before it's turned in. Ends up riddled with spelling mistakes while he tries to make the content look smarter. Fortunately it's all electronically stamped with who made revisions. My boyfriend does that weird conversation thing. Sometimes I just try to talk over him. Sometimes I leave the room. He still doesn't know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. My current suspicion is he's formulating the next sentence during that pause. Either way it drives his mum and I insane. I couldn't imagine dating someone where when they talk it drives you insane. Thankfully it's not common. Just when his ad is acting up. Fast food. Third shift. The only other employee stayed in the bathroom doing blow. How TF do you afford coke on a fast food paycheck? You sell drugs to cover most of your living costs via cash. Then pay essential bills with your legit income. This guy drugs. Worked with a girl who would sometimes just lay in the floor and play on her phone. She would routinely flip out about something her boyfriend did and just start screaming curse words. Sometimes in front of customers. She was eventually fired for smoking weed while on the clock. Every time I think I'm a fuck up I read stories like this and I feel better about myself instantly. That's an optimistic way to read it. I just took my first manual labor job working in a grocery store and I was pretty upset when they said I need to pick up my pace. But I took it and I'm trying to do better. It's nice to know people can be so much worse at their jobs. Just go at a full run with the shopping carts at all times until they ask you to slow down a bit. Not necessarily a coworker, but my old supervisor literally told me not to think, even if it's wrong, that I do things her way, and not to ask questions, because I should already know what to do. I had just gotten the position. My wife talked about a supervisor her first husband had, when he, the husband, had an idea about improving their methods. The supervisor, who had a really strong Chicago accent, think of Saturday Night Live, da bears, would say you don't think, I think, and you do. When I was an intern, there was this old shrew who would call people into her office. My cube shared a thin wall, gossip, then call those people in to tell them what was said, etc. She would try to frame people for shit she did wrong. She was so arrogant, and she refused to adapt to workforce modernization. Example, she refused to learn how to hyperlink in emails, documents, etc. A real ray of sunshine she was. I worked somewhere in the last 3 years where they hired a secretary who refused to use a computer. I couldn't FG believe it. In this day and age. I worked in a law office with a secretary who refused to do anything because she didn't know how. She couldn't do documents in Word, scan or use the billing software, and refused to learn. In a crunch she would take things home for her grandson to do. Edited to at, somehow she was hired on full time after being a contractor, WTF. When she was hourly she called in sick, so she could just work enough to keep her Medicaid and government benefits. Should have hired the grandson, apparently. Well, the firm was paying her yet no demonstrable admin skill. Sounds like one or more of the key executives there appreciates old style dictation. Hired a cook on a good recommendation. He was just fine the first 2 weeks. Then I noticed food going missing. Then supplies started going missing. Then a customer told me that he had been adding auto 30% tips as food purchases. When I looked at the books, I saw that he had been adding 30% tips to all the credit card sales, and the cash rings were off from what should have been sold. I fired him that day. The next day he came in and apologized. Said he was on drugs and was going to rehab. I wished him well. Then next day he tried to break in after close and was caught. Idiot. Me reading your comment. I hired a cook. Oh, this is going to be about drugs. Apostrophe. As a former cook and dishwasher, it could have also been about assault with a deadly weapon while on the clock. Constant sexual assault / harassment. Stalking the underage hostess. Cussing out customers constantly. Dropping ice in the deep fryer. Constantly throwing knives and screaming hot pans at the dishwasher. bringing illegal firearms to work, stealing from coworkers, etc. Goddamn FNG. Please tell me you haven't actually seen all of those. This is about 15 years ago, but the office I worked in instituted a scent-free policy. One woman, who was already insufferable, was so offended by it that she snuck in her perfume collection. She'd walk down the halls and spray perfume into empty offices or cubicles when no one was looking, or before everyone arrived in the morning. This went on for well over a month or two, and we had no idea who was responsible. My coworkers and I started referring to this mysterious person as the Channel Bandit. She was finally caught on camera in the act. She'd left for 3 weeks vacation and was unaware that we had installed cameras after a break-in. Some of us already suspected her, as the Channel Bandit mysteriously stopped spraying while she was away. She quit right after she was caught. None of us were sad to see that cedar-scented psycho leave. I didn't realize a scent-free policy was a thing. Was that due to the type of work you were doing, or allergies or something else entirely? I've worked in a cologne/perfume-free restaurant before. A lot of seafood, specifically raw oysters and clams, will pick up subtle hints of a scent and change the flavor a person is paying $40/DZ for. Now, we did have a guy who preferred Axe body spray to anything else, so this might have been a factor, but still is true with the subtler, less offensive scents you can put on yourself. Edit. Also, why a lot of establishments went to a non-smoker break policy and switched to making a free family meal break for employees. Shoot. It should be considered par for the course for restaurant workers. Smell and taste are strongly connected. The hour manager at my last job had zero training, education or experience in hours. She was argumentative, passive-aggressive and incompetent. Toward the end she asked me, why are you being resistant and you're not being a team player? When I was advocating for client safety, I was the second person in less than a year to leave and hire an attorney. Oh geez. It's the worst when the person we are supposed to turn to for help are not properly trained. At a former job, the general manager was also in charge of ours. Because it was small office, he was a buddy of the owners and would pit people against each other on a regular basis. There was so much unnecessary drama because of this guy. It's been years, but just the thought of walking into that office and all of its chaos makes me nauseated. This guy named Daniel I used to work with at McDonald's in high school. He let everyone know he worked out and enjoyed being on the football team. He had this thing about taking 5 shits a day. He would walk by on his way back from the toilet, chest out, shoulders back, and triumphantly announce, "That's shit number 3. Fucking Daniel. Let a man announce his shits." He creeped the fuck out of all the girls at work, and then it came out he had stalking and sexual assault charges pending outside work. Fired that day. I had a guy at work make a bunch of gross comments in a full break room. My husband was sitting in the break room waiting for me. Heard all of it. I walked right into ours and listed the 30-some people in this normally really quiet lunchroom. That dude was so gross. Did they fire him? Yes. I work with this guy that tries to convert people to his religion every day. It's super annoying. I worked with a really nice guy at my old job. Added him on FB. Multiple Bible study videos every day. He didn't say anything about religion at work. That's how you do it. My dad's parents were very Catholic. If they cared that my parents raised me and my sister in a secular household, they never showed it. I have a coworker who's very old-fashioned and strongly believes that males and females cannot be friends. Well, it just so happens that my manager and I, a male and a female, happen to get along quite well because of our similar ages and interests. She reported me to the other managers for it and accused me of sleeping with him. People like this drive me nuts. The 1950s can keep them. We don't want them here. My old supervisor. She was that special brand of too nice. Laughing was her nervous tick, and hoo boy it was constant. She was incapable of being assertive, which is not the best quality for someone whose job is telling other people what to do. The best she could do was be passive aggressively nice when she really needed something done, which just made everyone dislike her. My current supervisor is clearly new to it. He's not nearly assertive enough. I've been struggling with my coworker not doing tasks I assigned to him. which I have the authority to assign to him, but no ability to enforce, and when I bring it up with my supervisor he will do that coworker's job instead of kicking his ass. My boss is exactly like this. She gets all timid, like she's interrupting you in the middle of something, when she comes up to your desk with some task. Because of that she does a ton of work she could give to her employees and works 10-hour days 7 days a week while me and coworkers are twiddling our thumbs Monday through Friday.